Circumstances are out in the world are external and abundance is intrinsic, and the two are not the same. Abundance, remember, is not necessarily something we create out in the world. It's just who you are. It's just who I am. It's just who we are. And the choice is actually the remembering of that. What are you choosing about this idea around abundance? How do you want to define, redefine, reclaim, take it back for the good, this idea of abundance? What does it mean for you? What might change if you believed you were still valuable, you were still powerful, you were still abundant amidst a world that doesn't reflect that back often these days? That's the work, my friends. Welcome to the Made for Money podcast, where feminine wisdom meets financial power. I'm your host, Christine Walsh, financial strategist for women entrepreneurs, fractional CFO, speaker, and author of the best-selling book, Be the Queen of Your Money, and guide for women who are rewriting their money stories and unapologetically rising into their wealth. Let's do this. All right. Today on Made for Money, what the F is abundance anyway? Welcome back, all. Thanks for listening. And it's Thanksgiving week here in the United States. So I thought I would dive into a little abundance convo with you. If you happen to see me on video, you will see me in my ski outfit. So just maybe a little plug to get you to see the video. I don't know. We just came in from skiing. So I'm here in my full-on regalia in skiing. But let's get down to business. What the F is abundance anyway? I was thinking about this because I think it's apropos for this week, but in a world where we are tossing that word around like it's a football on Thanksgiving Day, I was wondering, has abundance lost its meaning? And what does abundance even mean? Is it a feeling? Is it a mindset? Is it an energy? Is it a bank balance? Is it a thing? Is it a having? Is it a frequency? Or is it just another spiritual buzzword that makes us feel like we're doing something wrong if we're not floating around on this cloud of effortless overflow every second of the day? Well, today on Made for Money, I want to talk about abundance, and I want to talk about the abundance that no one likes to talk about. The abundance that has to show up when the world feels uncertain, kind of like now. Because if you're a business owner, woman, in 2025, and I guess if you're just a human in 2025, you don't really need to tell me. I think we all know that the world feels pretty tight right now. In business, definitely prospects more discerning about purchasing. We have sales cycles that are getting longer and longer. Cash flow, one of my things that I'm always talking about, feels perhaps a lot like a cash trickle, and everything is more and more expensive. And the people at the helm are not necessarily helping us feel all warm and cozy about it all. So that's for sure. So let's get into what is abundance. Well, I was thinking about getting to the bottom of this abundance conundrum we're in. Let me share with you where I think things go a little sideways with this whole abundance thing. And then we can go from there, and then you can get to choose if you want to redefine it for yourself. Hint, hint, a lot about my convo today is about choice. And isn't that quite perhaps abundant? So I looked up, as we all do, with these words that can seem a little out there, I guess, or have lots of different definitions. So I went to Merriam-Webster dictionary, and abundance is a noun. And what they had in the definition was meaning, quantity, an ample quantity, affluence, wealth, relative degrees of plentifulness. Number 4 in the meanings were the quantity of something measured, such as the total mass or number. And then 5 was around chemistry, the ratio of 2 isotopes of a given element in a given environment. Well, for all intents and purposes, let's just delete the 5th one, unless that's one about isotopes and ratio elements would make you actually feel more abundant. Then knock yourself out. Totally go for it. I would have to now look up what all that meant and see if it resonated for me. But the whole idea about ample quantity, affluence, wealth, plenty. When most people think of that, they think of mass, things, something tangible, something we can feel, something outside of ourselves. When we actually feel things are getting tight on the outside, our baseline of those meanings above, if they ring true for us, how we define abundance, will lead us, of course, to feel tight. And having that abundance feels inaccessible. I get it too.
right? If we're thinking of abundance outwards, then when things get tight, it doesn't feel super abundant in the world, in our pocketbooks, I'm from New York, so I don't know, as I've shared in episode 2, I don't know if pocketbook is a New York or East Coast thing, but pocketbook is a word for me. So wallet or purse. So we feel that in our pocketbooks. It's hard to connect with the truth of abundance when we see or we feel or we hear not abundant. And we see that like in our bank account around the world. We see so many people going without. We see that and we hear it, and the mainstream media does a number on this and does a number on us with it. So our external definition, if that's how we define it, with magnitude, plenty, a lot, will reinforce the external conditions and the circumstances reflecting back to us that we see. I totally remember being in a yoga class about 12 years ago, and I think it's notable that this timeline is important, because I think of it as like only 12 years ago. So it took me a while. I'm 51, so 12 years ago I was 39, so it's not too long ago that I figured this out or heard this concept. The class was a combination of yoga, movement, and workshop about purpose. The teacher asks, I just totally remember this so distinctly, what is the meaning of life? And some much more enlightened person than me answered, to feel our true abundance. And I was like, what? I was like, hold on a second here. What did you just say? What does that even mean? I was equally dumbfounded in my confusion and in my curiosity as I held what I felt like the longest pose of warrior. You know how it is in yoga sometimes when you're in that stance for what feels like forever. That for me, up until that point, abundance, I didn't think too much about it, but if I had to think about the word, it was about things, it was about plenty, it was about quantity, just like the definition in the Merriam-Webster dictionary. So no wonder, right? I'm here totally confused. I mean, I studied business to make lots of money. So there's the material abundance. What is this whole true abundance thing about? Well, I think now, 12 years later, which again does not feel like that long, but in my studies, in the research, in the working with clients, in my own journey, in my personal development, I think it's actually the true abundance that we're really needing to source right now, more than ever. We need to turn that abundance mirror around and reflect it back internally and redefine abundance from this more internal place. And this way, when I think of us tapping into that, because it's always been there. So this is more about a remembrance than anything, but there's external abundance and there's internal abundance. And when we have a good sense of our own internal abundance within, we then will see different circumstances, experiences out in the world. Because something about the abundance formula, if you will, I'm doing fake finger quotes, is not adding up, right? So here we are in the United States, one of the wealthiest nations in terms of GDP per capita, consumer goods, infrastructure, etc. And however, despite this abundance, surveys show that fewer Americans report being satisfied with their personal lives, their financial lives, than in past decades. So, for example, there's this 2025 Gallup poll that found only 44% of U.S. adults said they're very satisfied with their financial life, the lowest reading since the question was introduced. I feel it points really to this idea of how we're defining abundance, and we, the collective. We seemingly have abundance, but not feeling abundant necessarily. So why are these two things incongruent? And when we get to business, as women, the stats are even more against us in a way. There's a couple of things that I've quoted before and will quote in the future, but only 2% of women receive venture capital funding, and only 2% of all women-owned businesses actually achieve the $1 million revenue mark. So there may be a lot of money around, but it's not getting into the hands of women. And so what the invitation here is this idea around what I would call the power idea here is, what if we women redefined our definition of abundance, or remembered our real definition or true definition of abundance from the inside out, and then put that into play out in our businesses, our home, our family, whatever. What might change? Because we need some change here. So today, this week, as many of you reflect on what you're grateful for, as many of us reflect on that, given this holiday, perhaps it's an opportunity for us to take back the idea of abundance and redefine it on your terms and use that lens then to look out into a world that's been hands down, double down, mirroring back to us a lot of scarcity and uncertainty. And there is. The world has scarcity. It has uncertainty. It has safety things going on. And yet the invitation and the power move is our choice to feel and connect to our own internal abundance. And I, until 12 years ago, apparently, wasn't necessarily taught how to do that. Choice is where our abundance is accessed, our internal abundance, our true abundance. It's not from having a massive amount of options. I think of like the diner menu with 17 pages of things. It's about having the internal agency to choose a next step. And it's not about having $1 million in the bank or whatever, or in your retirement. It's that, and that's all good. Totally get it if you're choosing that and you want to choose that, and that feels part of your purpose. But it's more about the ability to choose it and the ability to know that if it did go all the way, you still, unequivocal, without a shadow of a doubt, are still abundant. Because abundance is an intrinsic thing, despite Merriam-Webster, or at least their definition. I guess I could look up Urban Dictionary and see if there's different meaning or something more contemporary. But circumstances are out in the world are external, and abundance is intrinsic, and the two are not the same. Abundance, remember, is not necessarily something we create out in the world. There is an element to that, but at first, at its core, it's just who you are. It's just who I am. It's just who we are. And the choice is actually the remembering of that. So some questions for you. What are you choosing about this idea around abundance? How do you want to define, redefine, reclaim, take it back for the good, this idea of abundance? What does it mean for you? What does it mean for your family? What does it mean for your business? And what might change if you believed you were still valuable, you were still powerful, you were still abundant amidst a world that doesn't reflect that back often these days? That's the work, my friends. That is the work. That is the work. And so much about the grasping of external abundance is about safety and security. I do it too, right? This idea of, the external, I have more of something, whatever, money, revenue, profitability. So much about that is about safety and security. And there's something not working about it, because here's a thought that will make you think. I suggest you walk down a dark alley late at night in a big city with your pocketbook filled with hundreds and hundreds of dollar bills and tell me you feel safe and secure. It doesn't work. And so it goes back to this idea. I mean, the cliche is it's an inside job, right? Our own abundance, our own wealth, our own worthiness is an inside job. But let's go back a step to first redefining the meaning of abundance, and then do that inside work. Do the practice, make it an experiment. You can always go back to the old idea. You can always put on the old dress, but here's the opportunity to try on a new dress and see how it fits. And it might be awkward at times. Totally get it. But the power is in that choice. So even in times and circumstances you feel, and there are many of us that feel we don't have a choice, and for many, many reasons. But even when it's dark, even when you feel alone, even when the bank account doesn't look so abundant, fake finger quotes again, even when your freedom is at risk, for sure. Which brings me to this idea, or the story about Viktor Frankl, he has this quote: between stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space is our power to choose our response. And in our response lies our growth and our freedom. I'll read it again. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space is our power to choose our response. And in our response lies our growth and our freedom. So Viktor Frankl, he was an Austrian psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor. He lost everything in the concentration camps. He lost his family, his freedom, his work, of course, his dignity. I believe he even lost his name at a time, I would imagine. His outer world was just taken from him. But while he was in the camps, he made this discovery that would become one of the most important teachings on human agency, and where the seed of that quote comes from. That even in the most brutal, dehumanizing environment imaginable, that some prisoners, including himself, retained a sense of dignity, a sense of inner leadership, a sense of self. Not because they were stronger, not because they had hope of they'd be rescued, not because circumstances improved, because they certainly didn't, but because they made an inner choice. They made an inner choice to offer a kind word. They made an inner choice to comfort another prisoner. They made an inner choice to remember their purpose. What was the meaning? And they made perhaps tiny decisions. Maybe it was as simple as each day waking up and being like, who will I be today? And Frankel realized that even when every external form of freedom and abundance, if you want to call it that, was stripped away, the freedom to choose one's own inner response remained. And that single choice, that inner choice, was the difference between the human collapsing and survival. And that could be ours too. It's deep. It's that deep. And that's why I love this idea around our own internal agency, our own internal choice at any given time. And more importantly, what I would recommend is, as we practice this, because that's what the invitation is this week on, redefining abundance. What does it really mean to you? And then practicing it out in the world. We do it in small ways. We increase the conditioning. We practice. Where do we choose? So when the big way needs to show up and we know our true abundance. So maybe this gives you something to talk about or practice at family Thanksgiving this week. And if not, totally get it. I'm not doing it, but maybe, I don't know. If not, I'm totally here for you though. And let me know what comes up for you. Follow the link in the show notes, reach out, because what I see is that abundance is you, it's me, with nothing else. And that's the beauty, even given our times right now. And we need to remember it because it's going to be needed, how much we remember our own internal agency as we move forward. And follow the link. Let me know what you think. Abundance is yours. Abundance is you. And it looks good on you. So there's that. All right. Be sure to follow the podcast, get the short and sweet on money every week and abundance, and share with a woman who you know needs a place to share her money story. Until next time, remember, you're not here to chase money. You're already made for money. Bye for now.